Simple problems require simple solutions. If it's too hot in my room, I open a window, or I switch on the fan. But what if our planet is too hot? There's no window to open, no cooling system I can easily turn on. Complex problems therefore require complex solutions. And here's our complex problem. The Earth is steadily approaching the 1.5 degree increase in global average temperature since pre-industrial levels. That was declared as the point of no return by the climatologists and signatories of the Paris Climate Agreement of 2014. And it gets even more complicated, by which I mean it gets worse. If we cannot hit net zero emissions by 2055, we would drastically lower the probability of limiting warming to that point of no return I mentioned earlier, an effective death sentence in statistician speak. That's our complex problem, simply put. Now, politicians and activists have been calling for a general reduction in CO2 levels and pollution from as far back as the 1970s. But here we are, 50 years on in 2019, and our situation is no less desperate. Our dependence on harmful fossil fuels is far more controlling than many might initially expect. Everything in this room around you, the lights, the cameras, the phones and chairs, the mediums of transportation you've all taken throughout your lives up until this very point have come to pass thanks to fossil fuels powering our society forward. But as standards have gone up, so has demand, and we have racked up a considerable greenhouse debt which has yet to be paid. So let's kick things off with addressing some of the causes and their effects. And I know what you're all thinking. Here comes the part about having to stop driving. Well, personal transport did account for 23% of global CO2 emissions in 2010, with the warming effects of those emissions potentially lasting over a century. So is it really necessary to drive half a mile to the store to get in on that 40% discount on designer sunglasses and clothes? Probably not. It would be healthier for ourselves and the environment just to take a simple walk every now and then. Now that covers the individuals. But what about the large organizations and groups of people that span the globe? Some might be under the impression that if the big bad governments of the world just threw some money at the problem, then the Earth would be saved. So let's look at what some governments are doing. Like the UK government, for example. The Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy recently reported that the UK's consumption of energy from renewable sources has almost doubled in the past 5 years. Now that's real progress, but it's still going to take a complete rethink of our way of life. China may be the largest polluter, but on a per-person basis, it's the citizens of the West that are doing the crime without serving the time. So what do we do now? We need to trust the experts in the hundreds of think tanks, NGOs, and research panels. And we need to act. We need to commit to radical reform and pressure lawmakers. But we also need to hold ourselves and each other to account. Be it picking up some litter, switching the light bulbs in your homes to more efficient LEDs. Maybe you'd go so far as to cut meat out of your diet, something which my friend Vivek told me he'd struggle with. For reform to happen, it needs to happen on all levels of society for it to hold meaning. But what if we didn't just limit our emissions, but also tried sucking some CO2 back up from the atmosphere? The most obvious example of these carbon negative solutions would be afforestation, planting trees. The Philippine government has recently mandated that all prospective college students have to plant 12 trees before beginning classes. I hope the head teachers in the room are taking some notes. Another example of a carbon negative solution would be newly designed carbon extractors manufactured by a firm called Carbon Engineering, which help to convert carbon dioxide in the air to drinkable water. Exciting, isn't it? We could hit 2 birds with 1 stone. But economists are wary of such solutions leading to a false reassurance that if we, the consumers, feel less pressure to change our harmful habits, we might end up producing even more greenhouse gases. It's as though we were shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, each of the approaches to the climate crisis has its cons. Taxation is a dirty word, and I can see many of you getting riled up at the mention of introducing a new tax, such as my father over there. Lawsuits are lengthy, they don't captivate sustainable interest, and carbon-negative solutions might have the opposite effect to what's intended. It's as though we keep shooting ourselves in the foot and are quickly running out of bullets. But that isn't true. It's just that it won't be a simple win. Humanity has been faced with hundreds of crises involving thousands and millions across our Earth. Many would say that we're undergoing a trust crisis. My brother can't be trusted to turn off the lights. Students at school can't be trusted to turn in their homework. Myself included, on occasion. And some governments can't be trusted to uphold fundamental human values. The United Nations acts as a symbol of world peace and unity, so maybe we should emulate it. Relative to human history, we are at the most peaceful time in our existence as a species. A global council, formed by delegates of all peoples, with the authority and recognition of all governments, will be the first key step in the right direction. It will be a step in limiting emissions worldwide, in regulating reckless industries, and enforcing the platitudes of politicians. This is the most complex problem faced by humanity, and no single nation can stop it, no single school can stop it, and no single individual can stop it. I had a friend once who was a brilliant cross-country runner, consistently coming in the top 5, well ahead of me. But one day, she abruptly stopped mid-race, gasping for air. The ever-increasing pollution in Hong Kong had become unbearable for her, even though her asthma hadn't ever held her back before. And that was what stopped her. The smog of uncontrolled industry, not the inflammation of her windpipe. She wouldn't run again. Complex problems require complicated solutions. And if we really, and I mean really, put the effort into it, we can create our own solution. We can assure the next generation of humanity that there will be a tomorrow worth living for, a tomorrow worth running for. Yes, we can.